Hey guys, welcome back to the next video of our series. Today we're going to be talking about how to get our model into Marvelous Designer, as well as a couple of other tricks and tips for the interface in regards to Marvelous. So here we are in Maya. This is the decimated character that I brought from ZBrush. As you can see, we're roughly at 3K, 300,000 triangles right now, which is not that bad. Maya can pretty much handle it with no issues. But there's a small problem that we have in regards to our model and Marvelous Designer, and that's the fact that we have hair. We haven't talked about the design of the dress and the kind of information that we're gonna have for her, but one thing that it's gonna be a problem for us is that if we want to have anything here on the back side of her neck or back, we won't be able to because of the hair. Now, the good thing about this is that even though we did the decimation in ZBrush, ZBrush is smart enough to do the decimation per piece, so we can very easily get rid of the hair and re-export this character without the hair. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into face selection, double click the hair, and erase it. It will take a little bit because, again, there's a lot of faces there, but there we go. No faces. We got rid of almost 50K, so that's good. Now, the other reason why I wanted you guys to be here in Maya is because I want you to see that our character is in actual real size. Remember that the units in Maya are centimeters. So if I create a cube, that's a 1 by 1 by 1 centimeter cube. So it's 1 cubic centimeter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale this in the y-axis to 180, which is the standard size of a human. I'm going to scale it 50 in X and 50 in C. So it's like a block, like a pillar. I'm going to move this around. I'm going to move its pivot to the lowest point. And then I'm going to move that point to the center of the grid, like so. There we go. So if we go into the front view and we check here, our character is slightly floating. That's fine. I'm not going to move her because I don't want to move her from her place in ZBrush so that everything fits once we get there. But I can see that from a size perspective, she's roughly, let's see here, 174, about one, no, that was way too tall. Let's move her out. Then she's sitting at 168, almost 170. So not super big, not super small. I think it's a good balance. If we want to later on, the only thing we need to do in order to get her into a bigger scale, just scale her up, and that'll fix it. We don't want to scale her in the y-axis. We need to scale her completely so that she is uniformly scaled. Now, again, as I mentioned in the past video, it's very important for your characters to be in world space and in proper scale, because that's the way the triangles and resolution is going to work better in Marvelous Designer. So make sure your character is up to the level here, and then just select it, export it. You can export it either OBJ or FBX. I'm gonna do OBJ for now. I'm gonna place it on the desktop. I'm just gonna say no hair Freya. There we go. And then I'm gonna go into Marvelous Designer. And in Marvelous Designer, the first thing we need to do is import that model as an avatar. So we're gonna go into File, Import Add OBJ, and we're gonna select, let's go to the here, and no hair Freya, there we go. Now this menu right here is very important for us. We need to add the character, load it as an avatar, and we need to make sure that the scale is properly set up to centimeters. If for any reason you've been working in millimeters or meters or any other scale, this is the place to change it. Now, if you don't even know what kind of scale you're working on and you get it into Maya and you're lost, try the auto scale feature. It might not be the best option for you, but sometimes I've realized that it kind of works. The specific place where this worked really well for me is one time I was doing this big container, like metal container, and I wanted to add like a canvas thing on top of it, and it was really huge. It was like 200 meters long because it was supposed to store like a robot or something. So when I got it into here and I tried to do the simulation was really heavy. So I did the auto scale, and it pretty much thought that the model was not 200 meters but rather like 20 meters, and that was easier to work with, and the detail, the level of detail was pretty much the same. So that kind of situations, that kind of examples can work for you. Anyway, other than that, everything should be the same, like just the way they are. just hit OK, and if everything turns out to be good, there you go. Your character is going to be right here. Now, a couple of shortcuts I wanted to show you here. You can change your avatar's color as well. So I can come here and select a different color for her, a little bit of like a skin tone. Not necessary, but it works. And there are a couple of shortcuts hit for the different kinds of patterns. So let me show you real quick. If we were to create another scarf, but in this case we're gonna do a scarf in 2 pieces. So one there, and then let's move this around, the other here. One of the things that you can do, and you saw it with the sewing machine in the last video, is you can cross the way this works. And what's going to happen is when I simulate, it's going to create some sort of candy wrap kind of thing. So one side of the fold is going to be with normals to the front or to the top, and the other one's going to be on the other side. Now, in this type of cloth, you won't see much of a difference. It's still a strip. The only thing that changes is where each of the normals is facing. But in some other things, like a shirt or something, you can get like these very nice knots that will give you an interesting result for your character. Now let's talk about a couple of the basics here for the character. Let's do a belt, a very quick belt. So I'm gonna do a belt here. I'm gonna position it on her waist or hip or waistline, like so. Gonna get her this, and you can use your sewing machine to sew one part of your piece to the other. What's going to happen here is you're going to create a loop. However, the problem there is that loop is going to be very difficult to pretty much surround your whole character. So that's not going to work for us. We need to do 2 of this. So I'm going to select this guy, double click the middle button, scale uniform. So it's not as, again, double click middle button there, scale. In this case, I can just Control C, Control B. Control C, Control D, sorry, to duplicate. Bring this guy here. I'm gonna change the direction. Move it back. There we go. And now I can just use my sewing machine to say, hey, from you guy to you guy, and from you guy to you guy. And there we go. Now if we do the simulation, there we go. We got a high waist belt right there. Now the reason I want this belt is because I want to use this as an anchor point for like a dress or like a skirt. Now the thing I want to show you about this is the fact that the more cloth you have, I have Photoshop right here. I don't have my blackboard, but this will work. Just 1 second, select my proper brush. Hard round, there we go. So if you have a cloth that has this area, it's on color burn, this area right here, and then you have another cloth that has a very wide area right here, and you attach this bottom cloth into this area right here with the sewing machine, what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of wrinkles because you have a lot of area that has to pretty much converge on this little area here. So one of the main mistakes I see people do when they try to do like flowy dresses and a lot of wrinkles is most of the pieces fit pretty much like a puzzle. So they do something like this. If you want things to be a little bit more flowy or a little bit more loose, then you need to give bigger area to things, like so. That way, when you stitch them together, you're going to have more cloth to work and you're going to get a little bit more wrinkles. So let me show you that. I'm going to move this here so that I see how big this rectangle is. I'm going to use my poly, say, okay, from there to there. If I do this, let's say I do something like that. Wait a little bit for it to process, and then just say, you know what, I want you there, and simulate. Oh, it's on the back shot actually. It's going crazy because I did the wrong thing. I'm gonna select the sewing line, just erase it. Select my garment, move it around, and then re-stitch this together like so. There we go. So simulate, we're gonna get our belt. It's some sort of like an apron or something. And you can see, since I have more cloth on the back side or on the bottom, I'm gonna get more columns here, more wrinkles or more folds on the back side here. Now let's change that. Let's say, hey, let's keep the same amount of cloth there, but let's move the points here. I'm gonna move this point all the way up here. It's double the amount of cloth that I used to have. And you're gonna see that the stitching should remain. Yeah, there it is. So I just simulate. And what's gonna happen now is all of that cloth has to go somewhere. It has to pretty much attach somewhere. And we're gonna get more columns and more rows on the upper side. See that, how that looks way more nice or nicer? Sorry if my English is a little bit wonky sometimes. I forget how the expressions are supposed to work in some occasions. So see that? If you want to do like a school shirt or something, you need a lot of cloth if you want to have this nice looking detail here. And of course you need somewhere to attach it to. You can't just have this piece of cloth by itself. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let's do that little thing that I was talking about. Let's Control C, Control R so that we flip it. And I'm gonna use my sewing machine to create a new stitching line from here to here. So the right side, it's gonna it tried doing the same thing. Since it's pretty much copying the same thing, it's interacting in a very interesting way. So this side is gonna stitch itself pretty much naturally. This top side, I can stitch it to this part nicely as well. See how you get like extra stitching lines? Because again, this is a bigger surface area than this one. So you're gonna get this kind of columns, very nice looking columns that we get here on the front. And what I'm gonna do here, so for you to see, is I'm gonna make a different stitching here on the left or right side of our skirt. Let's simulate and see what happens. Again, I'm gonna get a lot of things here, like a lot of folds there. And what's happening here is we're gonna create like this very weird looking bundle here, because the stitches are gonna try to cross each other and pretty much do like a candy wrap kind of thing. So this might not be the best option for us because it's trying to do something that's physically impossible. It's trying to pretty much fold itself like over or something. So it won't work for us, but if you want to do some crazy stuff, there are a lot of stuff you can do with this twisting kind of motion. If you have that, don't worry, you can select it. You can select the stitching thing, like so. Oh, select that, and then right click, reverse sewing, or Control B, and you'll just reverse the sewing. And it should be straight now. So if we do the new animation, the stitching will solve itself. And after a little bit, it will fall and give us a nicer looking skirt like so. Okay, and again, we're using our character. This is not the avatar that Marvelous had. This is our character that's doing all the job, and this is the nice dress that we're getting with it. So as you can see, it's really not that difficult to get going with Marvelous Designer. I believe this is one of those software that's really easy to learn but difficult to master. So the more you practice, the more lessons you take, the more patterns you know how to make and everything, the better and better that your results are going to be. This again is not the final thing for us. There are a lot of things we can do, a lot of what's the word, polishing that we can do in ZBrush to get this fold looking really nice. But imagine trying to do this by hand in ZBrush. It's going to take you quite a while, at least a couple of hours. And here, in just a couple of minutes, we got something that's working for us. Let's do one more change here. I'm going to grab my both of these little squares here. Again, double tap the middle button. I'm going to make them even smaller because I want it to be a very tight belt here, like a high waist skirt. Now, the reason this skirt is looking weird is because the squares here are not completely symmetrical. So one thing we can do here is I can go back, turn off simulations so it's easier to work with, go back to the points and just align them. You're gonna get that magenta looking line there to show you that you're going, or you're pretty much intersecting with another point. That's a perfect way to make everything as square as possible. And also, if you double click a line, you will see its length, so you can compare whether or not the length of all the parts are equal. Let's do another simulation now, and there we go. That looks a little bit more straight, more symmetrical, very nice. Now, what if we were to make this very, very long? Well, if we were to grab these two lines and just move them down, like way below the floor, what's gonna happen, or should happen, is that the floor will be a ground plane for us. And we will have some collapsing of cloth here on the bottom. And it looks really nice, actually. It's a nice way. If you're doing like a sculpture or something and you want drapery to fall and fold here on the ground, it gets you very, very nice looking results. One more thing, and this is just for vanity's sake, we're not really gonna use it. We can add, let me see if I can find it here. We can simulate a couple of other things for our characters, such as wind. Where is it? Where is my wind? Scene. And in scene. Oh, I forgot where it was. In just a second, let me see if I can find it real quick. Materials, sewing, 2D pattern, 3D pattern. Had to be here. Huh. Environment, there we go. Display, environment, and oh no, it's not here. Yeah, show wind controller. There's the wind. So if you select the wind, you can activate the wind, and boom, flowing garments. Again, this, in my experience, this only works for like static scenes where you want to get like a render or something, but you can pretty much go crazy with this. Like, let's go 10,000, so almost like a tornado kind of thing. If you're doing like flag simulations or cloth simulations, like a tarp or something, imagine you're doing like a circus. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can work with here in Marble Designer. And at any point, you can just select this, Control K, and that'll freeze your cloth. So imagine you're doing like a sculpture for like a collectible and you're gonna 3D print and you want flowy things all around. This is a perfect way to do so. This is a perfect way to add a little bit of dynamism to your static sculptures and get a lot out of it. There's going to be a lot of treatment that we need to do to the cloth in ZBrush to make sure that it works properly. But again, this is a cool option for you guys. Anyway, I'm going to stop the video right here, and we're going to jump into Photoshop for a while so that I can explain a little bit of the design process that's going to go for our character. So hang on tight, and I'll see you guys in the next video.